Cool. Kia ora, Karl Tiefenbacher. Lovely to have you here.
Thanks, mate.
My first question to you is, how much Caffee Ice can you eat in an hour?
I like it. Start with really hard questions. I have no idea, mate. I've never really tried to do it. I mean, generally, I'm having a kitty cone these days. I don't need too much more than that. So, geez, that's a hard question. Gosh, you really get started with the hard ones. If I was doing a double, mate, it would probably take me an hour because reality is there's such big ice creams.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I see. Okay, so bang for your buck.
Exactly.
Okay, how does running an ice cream shop prepare you for being the mayor of our capital city?
Okay. So, I mean, I think there's this misconception that there's not a relationship between running a business and running the city. I mean, it's all about finances. It's all about making good choices.
Yeah.
When you start a business, you really have to look at everything from demand. How do you do everything? How do you do payroll? How do you do? You learn all about payroll. You learn about distribution. You learn about managing people, staff interaction, everything that you need to know about things you do. So, in our course of our business, we've learnt so much just from the fact that we've grown. We've grown from one little store, which I opened from scratch, to larger. So one of the biggest things would be around finances. I mean, you understand the burden of debt, which I think at the moment is one of the real issues that is facing the city. We've gone from 400 million back in 2018 as our debt levels, which is about $200 in interest per household, to now being $1.8 billion and about $1,200 in interest per household per annum.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So, I mean, understanding the burden of debt, understanding management of money. You have to be careful with money when you own a business because obviously otherwise you go bankrupt. So there's a whole lot of things that translate really, really easily over to the council.
Okay. The Wellington job market is in the gutter and graduates are struggling to find work. They're leaving the city in droves immediately after they graduate. How can you fix this problem?
Yeah, I think that's the biggest problem that we have is that basically we're making a city whereby people aren't going to be able to live. There's a few reasons that's happening. First of all, the rates are becoming incredibly high. Secondly, we're not actually working with businesses. So speaking to the tech startups, it seems to me that there are issues around the council helping them to get going. So when you start a tech place, for example, you might need 2 staff. So you sign a lease for 2 people, and then all of a sudden you grow a little bit and you need 10 people, you need 20 people. Each time you've basically locked into a lease that's actually no longer fit for purpose. So, there's ways that the council can help by maybe providing places whereby tech startups could start, but have leases which are malleable. So if you grow a little bit, then we'll put you into another space. And I think there's a lot of ways that we can work. The problem is at the moment we don't talk to businesses, we don't talk to people. How can we help you?
Yeah.
So I think that's, for me, is probably the biggest bugbear is that we're creating a city where we're trying to tell you how to live your life, when what we really need to do is we need to speak to people and go, how can we help you to achieve what you need to achieve? And I think for me, that's probably one of the most important things that I would do is actually speak to people and not actually try to tell them how to start a business or how to do things, but actually ask them, what do you need from us? How can we be a facilitator rather than a handbrake?
Okay, well, what about, say, the public sector? The government has slashed thousands of jobs in Wellington. How could you re-establish some positions within that sector? Because that's where a lot of, I'd say, university graduates here, especially at Calburn in humanities and commerce, might be looking to go into.
Yeah, so I think what we have to remember is that probably over the last 6 years, the government sector has grown by more than what it has shrunk in the last year and a half to 2 years.
Yeah.
So if you look at that, you've got to say, well, okay, during that 6 years, did we see an improvement in our city? We didn't. I think realistically, over the last 20 years, really, government offices have been moving out of Wellington anyway. Head offices have been moving out of Wellington. I don't actually see that as the future for Wellington. I think the future has to be based around the creative industries, the tech sectors, the startups in the innovation level. So we need to really stop thinking of Wellington as being a government city, and we need to actually go, how can we create a truly innovative hub whereby young people do have those opportunities to advance into basically onto jobs in the city.
Okay, so you wouldn't want ministry offices centralised in Wellington. You're happy for them to spread across the country.
I'd love to have them, but I don't see that there's any way that we can necessarily force them back into Wellington. I think that's the problem. We're on a tide that's actually moving out, and sometimes you can't fight against tide. What you've got to do is you've got to innovate and change, and I don't think that's what we've been doing too well over recent times.
Are you worried about Trump's tariffs on international films? Do you think that's going to hurt Wellington's film sector?
I think we have to take that all with a grain of salt, don't we? I mean, Trump's been doing tariffs on a lot of things and then taking them back and then moving them over. So I don't think we really have any idea how that pans out. I think anything that hurts the film industry, which has been a massive supporter for Wellington, is a danger because that's one of the areas that we really want to keep on excelling in. But I think it would be naive to think what Trump says is what Trump's going to do in a month's time, 2 months' time.
All right. The Golden Mile.
Yes.
You don't like it. You want it gone altogether. Why is that?
Yep. So why do you want to keep the Golden Mile would be my first question.
Okay, I'm asking the questions.
Okay, cool. Okay, so I think people look at a plan and they go, okay, look, that makes it more vibrant and exciting.
Yeah.
But what I'd say is the plan's not that good. We've got a cycle lane going through an entertainment zone. First of all, that makes no sense at all. So for pedestrians, I don't think it's a safer plan. If you look at the fact that we're taking the vehicles out, a lot of the little businesses, like the takeaways and all that sort of thing, they require people to come through. And everyone goes, we'll put some outdoor seating there. It'll be really, really exciting. It'll be such a cool vibe. But you've got to look at Wellington. And if you look at Wellington's weather, you can say 25% of the time we have fantastic weather, brilliant, still absolutely magnificent. At those occasions, sitting outside is going to be an absolute godsend,
Yeah.
You go, that'll be amazing and buzzy. Problem is, another 25% of the time, it's sunny, but it's windy. So all of a sudden, no one wants to sit outside. Another 25% of the time, it's rubbish and windy, and no one wants to sit outside. And another 25% of the time, it's absolutely disastrous, and no one will sit outside. So literally, we're limiting the amount of people that we use that on a 24/7 basis. So I look at, what people don't realise is the complexity of stores. You need that constant turnover over a regular period of time.
Yep.
If I look at my Cube Street store, for example, our break even is $3,000 turnover a day. $3,000 we have to turn over every day just to break even, and that's with a $7 item. If you take away the incentive of people getting there or the way that people get there and you reduce those numbers, 10% is enough for most businesses to go bankrupt if you take away 10% of the business. I truly believe the Golden Mile project will see a lot more than 10% disappear. And the other side of it, which people don't understand, is the way people get around and the way people deliver. So at the moment, we get deliveries throughout the day. If someone needs to fix a gelato cabinet, which they're doing today, funnily enough, at our Courtenay Place store, they can park outside, they can take their stuff and put it inside. With a new plan, they'll struggle to find a park.
Loading zones are included in the plan, though, aren't they?
Not many. It's been a constant bugbear of ours that we've been saying to the council, there's not enough loading zones. So they say, there's like 6 of them here. And it's like, but sometimes there's 10 to 12 trucks trying to find a spot. That's without the service vehicles that, as I said, like the refrigerator guy who's trying to fix our cabinet. So they have to carry something that's 30, 40 kilos, 5 minutes, 10 minutes from their car and then go back and forth between the car. There's a massive productivity cost to that as well. There's just so many reasons why the plan is not a good plan.
Okay.
And there's a reason why I've got in that store 2,000 signatures against it.
Yeah.
And I've spoken to just about every business on that street. I've literally knocked on doors of the offices upstairs, and 90% of those people signed a petition against it. So there's a reason why businesses are against it, and it's not just we don't want development. We want money spent on the Golden Mile. We want more safety down there. Unfortunately, the homeless problem is a real issue down there, whereby people feel unsafe because of the homeless things. We had 2 customers at our Courtenay Place store that have left in the last 6 months, and their reason for leaving was quite simply that every time they came in the morning, there was a smell of urine as they walked through the front door, and they just got so pissed off. That's ridiculous. So there's other issues with Courtenay Place.
All right, so if you're going to mention homelessness, how do you see yourself reducing homelessness rates in Wellington?
So what we need to do is it's not so much the homeless, because I mean the people that are sleeping on the street around Courtenay Place are not necessarily it's not necessarily a homeless problem, because a lot of them are doing that because that's the way they choose to live.
Yeah.
And I think we just need to make sure that they're in the system. We need to work with the government and actually put them into the system where the system helps them to find somewhere else to live, because the reality is we need a city that is vibrant, and a vibrant city can't have people tenting on Courtenay Place like they do at the moment.
Would that be supporting organisations like the Wellington City Mission?
100%. Yep, I love what they do.
Cool. Ray Chung.
Yep.
He has said that he wants you to fall and rank behind him, just as Tory has for Andrew Little. Do you have any plans to pull out and fall and rank?
No, I think I don't mind Ray. I know that he roughly thinks the same way as I do. I think that his ideas are possibly a bit more extreme than my ideas. I mean, he's probably more about austerity, while I'm more about we need to be spending money, but we need to be spending money wisely.
Yeah.
there's a lot of good things about Ray, so I'm not going to bag him. But personally, I think I will be a better mayor than him.
Yeah, okay, cool. In your meeting with VUSA, the Victoria University of Wellington Students Association,
Yep.
you said you believed in keeping Māori wards,
Yep.
but you didn't want the Poiwi seats on the council anymore.
Yeah.
You said they cost the council 200,000? 280,000.
Yeah.
Could I just ask, where did you get those figures, and do you not believe mana whenua should be represented on the council?
I 100% believe mana whenua should be represented on the council, and that's through the Maori ward system.
Yep.
My issue is that we've currently got 2 unelected people who are also on there that we're paying 140k each, which is what their salary is, which is more than a normal councillor who's actually elected. And they get to vote on things like, say the airport shares would be a great one, whereby there was a big hoo-ha because they got excluded because they were able to vote on the committee level, but they weren't able to vote on the full council. With all due respect, I'm not sure that there was any reason why they needed to. It was a financial decision around the airports. It's not about the land or anything about that. It's just simply a financial decision. So therefore, I think it should be elected people that are doing it. I'd rather spend that 280,000 on getting rid of the homeless problem on the streets, to be honest. That's my personal feel. I still think that there's ways of engaging with mana whenua. I'm not quite sure why they need to be on council as unelected members.
Okay. Do you still think you've got a solid chance of winning this election?
Yeah. I actually still think I've got a really good chance. I think the reality is what we've seen at the moment is we've seen a whole lot of hype. You've had Andrew Little obviously chucked into the mix, and everyone's like, oh great. And part of that was, to be honest, was because he was guaranteed to get rid of Tory. And there's a lot of people in the city, and that might not be, Salient readers in particular, who really, really wanted to get rid of Tory because they don't like the way that the city's gone under her leadership. Mm-hmm. I think when we start asking questions, where do you stand around Golden Mile? Where do you stand around cycleways? How are you going to grow the city? All these sort of things. When you start asking actual questions around how are you going to grow the city?
Yeah.
How are you going to improve things? How are you going to stop us spending money that we don't have and burdening the future generations with debt that we can't really afford? All these sort of questions. When you start doing that, we're going to discover he doesn't actually have the answers, because at the moment I think what he's saying is based around the polling they do to find out what people want to hear.
So you're going after Andrew Little quite a lot, but you don't really hit
I think
Ray Chung.
Well, the reality is Andrew Little is probably the bigger competition than the two. Ray is more my side, but I actually think Ray, eventually people will start to see the logic that I'm probably a better option.
Okay. Lastly,
yeah.
What can you say to the student voting bloc? It's a sizable chunk of voters who are probably more likely to vote than people in older age demographics. They're probably going to sway the election heavily. What do you say to students to earn the vote?
Okay, so what I'd say is quite simply, just look at everything. Look at the cause and effect, and look at the outcomes of, look at it as a total effect of what's happening, because when students leave university, for example, one of the big issues they have is they have a massive student loan, and they're going, oh my God, how the hell am I going to pay that back, right? Mm-hmm. We as a city have those same issues. We're borrowing money we don't have, and we're indebting future generations for the whole of their life. So that's one of my big issues with the things we're doing. Because if you look at our growth from 400 million in debt in 2018 to 1.8 billion now, we didn't use that money to fix our pipes. We didn't use that money to improve our infrastructure. We didn't use that money to actually support businesses so that we have a thriving city whereby youth can get their jobs and they can stay here. I want a city that people want to live in and they can afford to live in. That's simply what we need to do. Take away maybe some of the ideology and look at the effects of what people are suggesting and how they want to do things. I'm going to bring up social housing would be a classic one, because I agree with the fact that we need social housing. The only thing I disagree with is that the fact that the council shouldn't be the one funding it. Central government needs to be funding it, because that's what we pay our taxes for, not what we pay our rates for. Now that one can be really, really tricky, because you go, so he doesn't want social housing. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is it all comes down to where that money is funded from.
But it doesn't seem like central government is probably going to be keen on stepping up to the plate with that.
The point is they have to be. Currently Wellington is the second biggest landlord in the country. No other city ratepayers are burdened with the cost of paying for social housing. Mm-hmm. We have to negotiate with the government, whatever government it is, and we have to say, look, the citizens of Wellington, we have to do the best for Wellington, right? So the citizens of Wellington cannot afford it. We need that support. This is your role. Start paying for it.
Okay. Karl Tiefenbacher, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to come here and talk to us. All the best with the campaign. Thank you.
Mate. Pleasure.